As our world changes, we'll keep you up to date with the latest information. News Talk KVNU 102 FM, 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Building. Today, for the seventh day in a row, the Utah Department of Health's daily report includes fewer than 1,000 new positive COVID cases, including today 627 cases. Numbers over the last week have driven Utah's rolling seven-day average for positive tests to 637 a day. The state's total caseload has surpassed 921,000 cases since the outbreak began 23 months ago. Included in today's new report are 38 positives in northern Utah. UDOH reported 5 new COVID deaths today, adding to the 4,397 Utahns who have lost their lives to the coronavirus since the start of the pandemic in March 2020. There have been 224 COVID deaths in Cache, Box Elder, and Ridge counties. The caseload has grown to 51,205 in northern Utah. 1,977 in the Bear River Health District have been hospitalized. Hospitalizations today amount to 395 Utahns, which is 37 more than were reported on Wednesday. Among those currently hospitalized, 92 are in intensive care, 3 more than Wednesday. The state reports about 4 in 10 ICU patients in Utah are being treated for COVID. During the pandemic, 33,073 Utahns have been hospitalized. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight, chance of snow 50%. Cloudy overnight low 5 to 10. And then a slight chance of snow early tomorrow. And then cloudy, gradually becoming mostly sunny, high temperature in the mid-20s. Right now we have 22 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Berenson Caldwell. Have you been in an accident? Contact Berenson Caldwell for professional legal advice. Visit berensonlaw.com to instantly connect and receive a free case review of your injury. berensonlaw.com.
A building is just a building until it's your building. It's where you work, where you create, and where you store your valuable equipment. You take pride in your building, so make sure it's built right and built to last. Northern Steel Buildings will guide you from concept to construction. For your commercial, agricultural, or industrial steel building, visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work, or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. In a letter addressed to employees and parents on Wednesday morning, Cache County School District spokesperson Tim Smith announced the school district will continue on the abbreviated school day schedule for students into the end of the school year. Smith said that while COVID numbers are drastically lower, they continue to see high rates of absenteeism. He says they feel it's important to continue to provide time for teachers to work with students who have been absent and who may be behind on their schoolwork. The schedule would remain as follows. Morning kindergarten and preschool, 9:05 a.m. to 11:50 a.m. Afternoon kindergarten and preschool, 12:05 to 2:50 p.m. Elementary schools, 9:05 to 2:50 p.m. Middle and high school, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Smith said the district appreciates the support they have received from parents over the past 2 years. And Rising Ridge Recovery, located in the old Sherwood Hills Resort, is a new residential treatment center for people struggling with substance abuse issues. Andrew Montgomery, the executive director of the treatment center, said it is a top-notch facility, one of the best around. He said treatment centers are sometimes just a house with 8 beds, while Rising Ridge Recovery is really one of the nicest addiction recovery places with room to grow. The 200,000 square foot building sits on 22 secluded acres. Montgomery said they are working with the state and are trying to be compliant with their requirements. The resort was previously used as a rehab facility until federal agents raided and shut down the business in 2016. Agents reported a wide variety of documented licensing violations on the part of the resort, including several related to administration of drugs, safety, and staff qualifications, plus one concerning the handling of clients' insurance policies. Matthew D'Alessandro, the managing partner of the Wellsville facility, wanted to make it clear that they are not Sherwood Hills. Rising Ridge Recovery provides a 24-hour therapeutically planned living and rehabilitative intervention environment for the treatment of people who abuse drugs, alcohol, and other substances. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Keeping you informed 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
If you're looking for your next pre-owned vehicle, buy it from a name that Utah has trusted for over 95 years. For generations, the Murdoch Auto Team has given Utah's pre-owned car, truck, and SUV buyers a comfortable, no-pressure buying experience. So go for the gold this February and get 1.99% financing for 72 months, plus no payments for 90 days, and a complimentary gift with every pre-owned vehicle purchase. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Hyundai or online at MurdochHyundai.com.
1.99% APR. Must finance through GWCU. Not all buyers will qualify. See dealer for complete details. Offer ends 2/28/22.
If you've been with the same insurance company for many years, you're probably experiencing rate creep. Hi, this is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. What is rate creep? This is where your rates increase every year, but your agent doesn't have any other options for you. Auto Owners Insurance and Quality First will give you options. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101, right in front of Fisher Home Furnishings. For more information, go to q1ins.com.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. Welcome back, rather, to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show, Thursday, February 24th. 1 week left in the legislative session. In this hour, we've got an update from the Senate Appropriations Chair, Senate President, and Senator Ann Milner on education funding. Some preliminary numbers out today. The amount of money spent on education this year just to cover growth and provide raises for teachers and to fund programs that exist in and around education, it makes up about 43% of the state's budget this year. That is, we're nearing half of the money the state has to spend every year going towards education. And the primary reason for that is, as I say over and over on this show, we have more kids in school than taxpayers. And so it's going to remain a challenge for the state. But it's looking to be a good year for education, which is nice because they haven't had a good year since about 2008 when it comes to legislative funding. So overdue, especially after what teachers and students and schools in general went through in 2020 and 2021. It's been rough. So we'll get to that. Nathan Daugs of the Cashwater Conservancy District joining us later on this hour as well to talk about the bills they have a close eye on. We spent a lot of time this week on House Bill 242, which is still on the Senate reading calendar after passing the Senate Natural Resources Committee on Tuesday after rushing through the House. This bill would create, or expand rather, a pilot program that AGM John Perry talked to us about on Tuesday from the Weber Conservancy District. The Weber Basin District has been running this pilot program. About 12,000 connections have been metered, and they've shown that just showing people how much water they're using has reduced water use in secondary systems about 30%. So the state wants to take this statewide, about $250 to $300 million price tag to expand from 12,000 up to just under 300,000 connections that will be metered. And those meter installations will progress over the next several years if this bill passes. That means if you are on a pressurized or unpressurized secondary watering system in anywhere in Utah, including here in Cache Valley, a meter is going to be installed. The water bills, though, are so numerous. This is just one issue that water districts have been keeping close eye on. So Nathan will join us later on this hour and talk about what the Cashwater Conservancy District has been paying close attention to and what they'll be keeping an eye on in the final weeks of the session. The international events have dominated the news today. You've probably heard a lot about this. Russia's military launched a long-feared invasion of Ukraine earlier this morning, attacking its ex-Soviet neighbor from multiple directions, and this goes nowhere good. The United States and the international community have already responded in several ways. There was an attempt at a false flag on Russia's part to make this look like it had been provoked by Ukraine, but thankfully it was pretty obvious, and the international community is not buying that. In a pretty fiery, more than hour-long speech earlier this week, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced said he was recognizing the independence of two Russia-backed separatist areas in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass region, making it sound as if he was mounting this invasion to protect Russian separatists in Donbass. Unfortunately, there's no evidence that any of the things he said were going on that he needed to invade for or over were actually happening. And Russia blamed Ukraine for stoking the crisis. And in that speech, Putin reiterated demands to NATO that Ukraine pledges to never join that transatlantic defense alliance. Today, President Biden responded in an address to the nation. We'll have a clip of that in just a bit. Also, we have an ABC News special coming up after the show tonight, right at 6 o'clock, an AB News special, hour-long special on the lead-up to and what we know so far of this Russian invasion of Ukraine. Earlier today, President Biden addressed the nation on live television and here on the radio as well. Here's just a bit of what President Biden had to say in response to Russia's actions.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. And I want to be clear, the United States is not doing this alone. For months, we've been building a coalition of partners representing well more than half the global economy. 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, to amplify the joint impact of our response. I just spoke with the G7 leaders this morning, and we're in full and total agreement. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen to be part of the global economy. We'll limit their ability to do that. We're going to stunt the ability to finance and grow the Russian military. We're going to impose and we're going to impair their ability to compete in high-tech 21st century economy. We've already seen the impact of our actions on Russia's currency and the ruble, which early today hit its weakest level ever in history. The Russia stock market plunged today.
That's just a bit of what President Biden had to say today in a nearly 40-minute-long address to the nation. More on this coming up again at 6 o'clock. We'll have for you an hour-long ABC News special on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the lead-up to, and what we know since. Some of the details coming out. The Chernobyl area, interestingly enough, has been taken by Russian forces just in the last few hours. But Ukraine forces were also able to reclaim the airport, one of the major airports there, and the U.S. says, U.S. intelligence and military leaders say that this is just what they believe an initial phase of a planned large-scale invasion by Russia. Russian leaders are claiming they've destroyed 74 Ukrainian military facilities, but that, you just don't know what to trust coming out of Russia. And what we do know, international observers and those reporters documenting on the ground have reported at least 40 have been killed just in the last several hours, several dozen injured in Ukraine. And, well, that's the latest on that. Again, you can hear more of the president's remarks today, the build-up to this invasion, and the latest headlines in a special ABC News report, hour-long report coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, just as we wrap. What happened on Utah's Capitol Hill today? Well, education funding got a lot of time and air in the room. We'll talk about it with some highlights from the Senate press conference. It's been a good year, or it looks to be, building up to be a good year for education in Utah. Details from the budget right after this.
The new year isn't the only thing we're celebrating here at Alpine Home Medical. This year marks our 25th anniversary, and we couldn't be happier to serve you. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent. If you haven't shopped with us, we'd love for you to make us your one-stop shop for any of your home medical needs. They're always changing, so please don't hesitate to stop by any of our 10 locations throughout Utah and southern Idaho.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Or online at alpinehomemedical.com.
Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September 2022.
That's almost a whole year.
I know. My half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the valley.
I better head there now.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Cache Water Conservancy District member Nathan Daugs joining us after the news at the bottom of the hour. Look at this as sort of a bookend to our conversation on Tuesday with John Perry of the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. John on Tuesday talked to us about their pilot program where they've been metering secondary water systems. About 12,000 connections in the Weber Basin District have been metered for the last several years. And some of the findings of that, well, the most important and the reason the state is now looking at expanding that is they found that when people knew how much water they were using in their from their secondary water systems, they voluntarily, without it even being suggested, conserved about 30% of their water use declined, so 30%, just because each month they were being shown how much they were using. So the state is looking at throwing a few $100 million. Not kidding, somewhere between $250 and $300 million at expanding that pilot program statewide. And that bill, House Bill 242, is currently it is on the second reading calendar. It passed the House committee and a House floor debate very quickly Tuesday, just after our interview, actually. And then before the show was even over on Tuesday at 6 o'clock, it had passed a Senate Natural Resources Committee. And this is the third time the bill had gone around, and it had failed every time before. It looks to be on fast track to passage this go-round. It's currently on the Senate second reading calendar, which means it will probably get a debate tomorrow or Monday. And we'll see if it passes before the end of the session, which is 1 week from today at midnight, March 4th. They have to be done. So 11:59 p.m. Thursday, March 3rd is when things will really start to speed up. So it's going to be an interesting. I'm guessing this passes, and that means secondary water metering is coming to Cache Valley. So we'll be speaking with Nathan Daugs of the Cache Water Conservancy District about that and every other bill that they're tracking related to water through the district here in northern Utah. So that's coming up on the other side of the news. Today we got some final-ish numbers on the budget when it comes to where the money's going. Questions. We got a breakdown. About 25% of the budget is going towards the tax cuts passed, the income tax cut specifically, which will put about roughly $50 to $80 each year extra in Utahns budgets, the median income earners at least. A lot more for the high-end earners and a lot less for the low-end earners, and that's why critics felt maybe the money could go somewhere a bit more targeted, but this is what the legislature decided on, an income tax cut. That makes up about 20% of the budget because, of course, a tax cut takes revenue out, so that has to be factored into the budget since they're planning a year ahead with each budget. This budget that they're discussing right now and will be finalized early next week, we learned today, is going to go into effect not until July 1st, 2022. So they're always working a year ahead. So tax cuts become an expense, at least on paper, as that revenue will not be there as this budget plays out. So that's 25% of the budget. 43% of the budget is going towards education this year, K through 12 and higher ed. Really kind of explaining, again, the challenge that lawmakers face each year as they mount this budget process in paying for education. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but in Utah, we have more children than taxpayers. And so it's a challenge each year and an increasingly large portion of the budget each year, keeping the public education system afloat, which we have to do. It's a constitutional mandate, unless lawmakers want to undo that again with a ballot question, which they've got another one planned already, it sounds like, that we might see on the ballot this fall. But it's a huge, we're getting close to 50% of the budget is going towards education. And you do have to wonder how sustainable all this is. We'll see in future legislatures if they decide to stop kicking that can down the road. This legislature, though, is going to kick the can, it looks like. Senator Stevenson, who chairs the Appropriations Committee, spoke to these numbers today as they were released. 43% of the budget, again, going towards education. What does that mean for the rest of the budget?
I think you'll see that as we go through finish the budgeting process, education has been very well taken care of in the budget. Not only education, but higher education. Both are very well funded. The other thing is, I think you'll see that we're going to put a little money, save a little money for next year. This economy is it's a little bit scary if you really think ahead. And so we think there needs to be a bit of a reserve there. But as the president said, we have done tax cuts. I think you said that you took this poll early in the session.
Earlier this month.
Earlier this month. Well, a lot of those things I think have been done, and I think hopefully our constituents will be very pleased with what we've done with education. But this is not the year to spend it all, just because of the insecurity, and maybe next year is not the year to spend it all either.
So, thank you for that follow-up. Yes.
Give us like an advanced look to what we see for education, what's been settled on.
Yeah, I think you'll see expansion of programs. You'll see WPU increases. You will see all kinds of things that make education better for the children. We are looking at an expanded kindergarten, but I think we'll do that over a period of time, not all at once. You will see raises for employees. You'll see compensation. We hope is adequate, but again, with what's going on in the economy, we'll probably have to revisit the compensation again next year, just because of the increases that are taking place.
So you're aware we funded inflation and growth and some WPU increases on our base budget. So with the budget coming out, there'll be additional WPU increases. So
can you say how much it is?
We'll wait. We'll probably talk to our caucus first. Is that okay? All right. Yeah. Thank you. Senator Miller, I know you've been very involved in education. I know you're interested, and we'll get that number out as soon as we can.
Just one more thing. You said, in an ideal world, we all get more money and we all pay less taxes. And sometimes that doesn't work real well together, but it has in the state of Utah this year.
Yeah, it has.
We'll see that tomorrow night.
The question too on the constitutional amendment proposal, do we expect to see a resolution to that this session? Any update on how that's going?
I think we'll continue to work on it. Senator Milner, you've been very involved.
Yes, we lots of conversations, lots of work going on. We ran into a place where we needed to do some significant modeling to try to get this right, and found that trying to do the budget and do the kind of modeling we needed to do at the same time just wasn't possible. So when we do this, we want it to be right. And so we'll go to work on that after the session and into the summer.
No. So maybe a resolution next year?
Yes, potentially. But our staff needs time. It's important that we get this right.
That was Senator Milner there at the end, basically announcing that proposed second in 2 years constitutional amendment to further undo funding mechanisms for public education and let lawmakers have, as they've put it, more freedom to spend how they choose without these constitutional state constitution limits that were placed on them by voters in generations past. That amendment won't happen this year. So that's good, because that was coming up late and seemed a bit rushed, but it looks like reality has set in there a bit. The poll mentioned, the first of that audio by the Deseret News reporter, was a Deseret News Hinckley Institute poll showing that 86% of registered voters surveyed in Utah and 60% of registered Republicans felt that tax cuts were not the right move this year, that Utah needs to take the surpluses and the federal money and the good revenue outlook, at least for the next year or two, and invest in itself, especially public education. As you heard from Senator Stevenson there, he agrees. He says you can't tax cut and continue to fund growth, which we're going to see nearly double here in Utah in the next 30, 40 years. So he said they are trying to balance that carefully, and that was his response to the poll. But there's a general overlook of where the state legislature is at when it comes to education funding. As the Senate president said there as well, you heard Stuart Adams say, it looks like teachers will be seeing a raise. You'll see some additional funding for existing programs, maybe even a few new programs funded, and a good year for education, at least for the time being. Check it out. The budget, they said, won't be out for public review until probably next Tuesday, and the legislature wraps up Thursday evening, Friday morning. So it's going to be a rush to go through this. As soon as it's out, though, we'll make sure it is linked on our Facebook page, and we'll talk about it here on the show. On the other side, water bills have taken up a lot of time in the legislative session, justifiably. What exactly should we be watching for? In addition to the secondary water metering bill we've been discussing this week, Nathan Daugs of the Cashwater Conservancy District joins us in just a few minutes to talk about every water bill they've got their eyeballs on. That's coming up after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:33, and the news is brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. A 26-year-old Willard man has confessed to sexually assaulting a Utah State student more than 4 years ago. Tyler Call accepted a plea deal to lesser charges that will likely keep him from serving any prison time. Call participated virtually during a hearing in First District Court Wednesday morning. He pleaded guilty to an amended charge of forcible sexual abuse, a second-degree felony. Police report that Call went with the victim to her dorm room late on the night of September 8th, 2017. While there, they started talking to one another from opposite ends of the room and then ended up snuggling on her bed. According to a probable cause statement, he asked her for sex multiple times, and she repeatedly told him no. However, he ignored her and sexually assaulted her. Call was originally charged with rape, a first-degree felony. Cache County Deputy Attorney Dane Murray explained during Wednesday's hearing the charge was reduced under the agreement that the defendant would admit to inappropriately touching the victim. He requested an in-person sentencing hearing so the victim would have the opportunity to address the court. Call spoke only briefly, telling the court he was willing to waive his rights to a fair trial and plead guilty in the case. Judge Brian Cannell accepted the plea deal. He ordered Call to appear for sentencing April 27th. Call was not attending USU at the time the crime occurred. He's currently out of jail after posting $20,000 bail and could be sentenced to up to 15 years in prison. Utah leaders are speaking against Russian President Vladimir Putin's military operation in Ukraine. This comes as Putin announced an operation in Ukraine in a televised address, claiming it's intended to protect civilians. Putin said Russia does not have a goal to occupy Ukraine, but the operation is a response to threats coming from the country. Putin also warned that any country who attempts to interfere with the Russian action would face consequences they have never seen. U.S. Senator Mitt Romney said in a statement he believes the move by Putin is without honor. His statement read in part that the peril of again looking away from Putin's tyranny falls not just on people of the nations he has violated, it falls on America as well. His statement went on to say that history shows that a tyrant's appetite for conquest is never satiated. Utah Governor Spencer Cox took to Twitter Wednesday night to pray for the safety of those in Ukraine. He tweeted that there is evil in this world, and tonight we pray for the safety of those in Ukraine. Representative Chris Stewart said he believes it's not too late to help Ukraine without sending in U.S. troops. Representative Stewart said in a statement that President Biden's strategy of restraint in the hope of not provoking Putin was doomed from the start. He said still it's not too late to help Ukraine defend itself without involving U.S. soldiers. KBNU News Time is 5:36.
Thank you for voting Adams Wealth Advisors the gold winner for Best Financial Planner in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Understanding your family, jobs, and goals is how Adams Wealth Advisors will continue to earn your trust.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
KBNU weather for tonight, cloudy, snow likely this evening, a chance of snow after midnight, accumulation around 1 inch, low 5 to 10 above, chance of snow 60%, and then partly sunny skies tomorrow, high temperature in the low 20s, partly cloudy Saturday, then clearing, mid-20s for the high. It's been to 24. Right now it's 22 at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Make your appointment at Logan Dental Associates with Dr. Brandon Preby, Curtis Taylor, or Anthony Larson. Or if it's more convenient, visit them at their Cherry Creek Dental office in Richmond. A full-service dental office to take care of the entire family. And now let's get this update from ABC.
President Biden responding to Russia's invasion of Ukraine with stronger sanctions and by sending more U.S. troops to Europe.
Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East.
French President Emmanuel Macron spoke today by phone with Putin.
According to a Kremlin readout, Putin gave an exhaustive explanation of the reasons and circumstances for the decision to conduct a special military operation. The Kremlin also says the two men are set to stay in contact. France's readout says, quote, after speaking to the Ukrainian president and in consultation with him, the president called Vladimir Putin to demand an immediate halt to Russian military operations, recalling that Russia was exposing itself to massive sanctions, end quote. Macron has previously vowed to never give up dialogue with Russia. Inez de la Quatera, ABC News, Paris.
Russian troops today took control of the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear power plant. At least 137 Ukrainians died today. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
At Heritage Jeep, February is the month that we honor American legends, and during our President's Day sales event, there's never been a better time to find yourself in a legendary Jeep vehicle, like the new Jeep Gladiator, one of the most versatile Jeep vehicles ever. Well-qualified leasees can get a low-mileage 39-month lease for just $339 a month. Jeep has always been on the cutting edge of innovation and performance, and they've proven that once again with the 375-horsepower 2022 Jeep Wrangler 4xe. Jeep's first plug-in hybrid vehicle. And you've got to check out the all-new 2022 Jeep Grand Wagoneer, the full-size sports utility vehicle that strikes the perfect balance between luxury and capability. Whichever Jeep vehicle you choose, you'll know that you're behind the wheel of the true American legend and the confidence and the ability to go wherever your adventure takes you. the President's Day sales event all month long at Heritage of Brigham City, Tremont, and Logan. Heritage Jeep, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
NMLS 1817019.
From our Freedom Loan that covers 100% of your closing costs to our $1,000 lowest rate guarantee. As Utah's premier mortgage broker, LendRight Mortgage shops the top lenders in the country to find you the absolute lowest rate and fees. We often beat other lenders' rates by 1/4 to 0.5%. That means a lower mortgage payment for you, which can save you tens of thousands over the life of your loan. Compare us to any lender. If we can't save you a minimum of $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Nobody does what LendRight Mortgage does. Nobody. See our rates and get a free quote on your purchase or refinance. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com. Crushing other lenders is our specialty. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com.
The last Wild Women's Clinic at Beaver Mountain will be held Wednesday, March 16th. The cost is $55 for a 2-hour group ski or snowboard lesson. Space is limited. You need to be registered by Monday, March 14th. Register at skithebeav.com through your season pass account or create one. Go to skithebeav.com for all the information. Don't miss the last Wild Women's Clinic of the season, Wednesday, March 16th. Come on up and ski the Beav.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology is Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Paul Danes by calling 753-HEAR or visit cachehearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Just a reminder, hour-long ABC News special on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which started, well, in the morning for them, late last night for us. And it's been a day of big international news, and it's a foreboding news story. The weight of it is not lost on many that I've spoken with, including myself, with some hints at darker times in history even. So it's getting a lot of attention. ABC News has put together an hour-long special covering the lead-up to and everything we've learned throughout the last 12 or so hours. So stay tuned at 6 o'clock here on KVNU for that hour-long news special from our friends at ABC News. Right now, though, you just heard an update from the legislative leadership on the education budget, and that's, of course, taking up a big chunk of the budget. But something that has taken up a big chunk of the air in the room throughout this session, which only has a week left, a week from today, well, technically tomorrow, though I doubt much gets done on that last day, it has been water. Water bills, from conservation bills to it just passed unanimously $40 million fund that has been set up to find ways to save the Great Salt Lake and restore its water levels. Water has been one of the biggest topics of the session. On Tuesday, we had a chance to talk with John Perry, AGM at the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, about their pilot program for secondary water metering, because House Bill 242 would take that pilot program and take it statewide at the tune of $250 to $300 million. But that's just one of the water issues that might be coming our way here in Cache Valley. So joining us right now from the Cache Water District, our friend Nathan Daugs joining us. And Nathan, appreciate taking some time for KVNU today. I know it's almost an unfair question to say, hey, as a member of the Cache Water District Board, what bills are you paying attention to? You're paying attention to all of them, right?
Yeah, we're following quite a few. There's 30-something water bills.
Wow.
And a number of them don't really have implications to Cache County, so we don't follow those as closely, but I try to follow them all a little bit. But I can hit the highlights of a few that that will have some potential implications if they pass, or the ones that have passed.
Okay.
House Bill 33, that Representative Joe Ferry from Box Elder County and a portion of Cache County is running, is an in-stream flow amendments. And that bill is really just going to make the process of a water right holder being able to lease their water for environmental benefits in a river or lake. It'll just make that process a little easier, which is a good thing.
Okay.
As we look for ways to keep water in the rivers and potentially get more water to the Great Salt Lake, this bill just makes that process a little easier, and it has already passed. So,
oh, great.
I think that's a pretty good bill. There's two bills that are looking at landscaping requirements or the restriction of landscaping requirements by cities or HOAs. House Bill 95 and 121 both have some different language about requiring turf, or not requiring turf for that matter, or being able to require turf, which could have a big reduction on water use.
Sure.
Not putting turf in park strips, for instance, different things like that. And they may fund a little bit of money in there for people if they want to take out their park strips and put in a less water-using landscape, not necessarily just rock, but something that might still look attractive for the community, but not turf in those areas where it really doesn't make sense.
Okay.
And then you did talk a little bit just a minute ago about House Bill 410, and that one might be good and it might be bad. There's a lot of unknowns with that $40 million that's going to be given to a water trust.
Sure.
To hopefully do good projects to benefit the Great Salt Lake. But I think there's a lot of unknowns in that bill, so hopefully as that moves forward, we can get the answers to that, because that's a lot of money.
Sure.
That it doesn't really define how it's going to be used.
And and what's the point of spending $40 million if it's not used effectively, right?
Yeah, or if it's used effectively for the Great Salt Lake, but at the detriment to Cache and Box Elder County agriculture, if they look at purchasing water rights with that money, that could be a detriment to us here for sure. So it really depends on what they end up allowing that money to be used for. But it could be if they'll allow that to be used for water conservation projects in our counties upstream to try and get more water to the lake in the long run, then that could be a good thing for sure. So
sure,
that's kind of wait and see on that one. And then I'll go back to your 242. So that is the bill that I get more calls on than any bill.
I'll bet.
From residents in Cache County. This
is also the bill that means the most future work for all of you in the district, right?
Well, not really. That's the different thing between us and like Weber Basin. So Weber Basin, they provide all that secondary water to most of Weber and Davis County. Cache Water District, we don't supply water to anyone, and so as a district.
So the district won't have to facilitate.
Meter.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't have to, but we'll try to work with the dozens, if not maybe 100 different canal companies that are going to be affected by that bill.
Sure.
And that's where the problem for us comes in. We have, let's call it 50. I think it's much more than that because there's not really a good count on how many small secondary systems we have in the county. It's going to cost the residents of the county anywhere between $15 and $20 million to put these meters in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first step. And then they're going to have to hire someone to manage the data from those meters that's going to be required as part of that bill and send out the monthly notices to all those users. So these are canal companies that are currently essentially run by volunteers, and they're going to have to come up with the funding to put the meters in and then hire someone to manage those meters. And in the end, most of them, it won't make a difference on water savings. And I'll explain that in that Weber Basin's water system is based on reservoir storage.
Okay.
And so if they meter everybody and they save 30% with all those meters, they either can leave 30% in the reservoir or they can add 30% more connections to their system, which ultimately is, that's what they'll do. As they grow, that conservation just means more connections for them, which is it's a great thing. But for us, the majority of our water just comes from the stream. There's no storage.
Sure.
And so if a system puts in meters and those that are metered cut back 30%, it's just the next user on the canal that's going to get that 30% savings. There won't be any less water taken out of the streams, unfortunately, because of the way we're set up. Last year, every stream in Cache Valley except the Bear River went dry because of the drought.
Yeah.
If we would have had a meter on every secondary user in the county, every stream in Cache Valley would have still gone dry.
Sure.
So I would argue if we're going to spend upwards of $20 million, we could do some large-scale infrastructure improvements that would save significantly more water than metering will. And that's why I just don't like the one-size-fits-all for the entire state with meters, because it's going to, I think with the number of systems, it's going to cause those users to say, we can't afford that $2,000 per connection fee to put that meter in, and then the ongoing fee for maintenance of that meter. And they'll just switch to culinary water, and that's going to put a strain on a number of the city's water sources. And so it has a large potential to backfire for a number of areas in Cache Valley.
It was interesting, Nathan, to see this bill shoot through so fast. After failing multiple years in a row, this year, as we were speaking with Mr. Perry on Tuesday, the bill went from a House committee to a House floor debate to a Senate committee and passed them all before the end of our show. It was very quick, and now it's just kind of stalled out in the Senate. It's been sitting there on the second calendar for a few days now. Have you had a chance to speak with Senator Wilson or others in the Senate that, from a water district's perspective, to express some of these concerns?
Early on, I have. I haven't been able to get in touch with him the last week. But yeah, we expressed those concerns of the district that for Cache County it may not make sense. And I'm hoping that might be why it's stalling is a number of smaller water companies across the state are expressing those same concerns, that the time frame they have in place, for one thing, and then the penalties that start if you don't get those meters put in time.
Sure.
Are a couple things that really make this bill pretty unworkable for those smaller systems that don't have the funding.
Sure.
Even if they can get that grant money, it'll still come up with a couple $1 million for a small canal company that doesn't have an employee. That's going to take a big task for them to pull that off and not see any benefit to the company in the end. They're not going to have any increased revenue that they can get from that because they're not going to add new users on like these bigger districts are doing when they put these systems in.
It's interesting, and you're kind of highlighting, the real down on the ground risks with all this. But as it was debated, that House Bill 242, there were a lot of questions on the committees about, the $250 million they're planning on throwing at this expansion to taking the pilot program statewide for secondary water metering. There were several House lawmakers who said, is that enough? Considering what it's going to mean for rural area canal companies and others, is $250 million. Is the state putting enough at this, or are we enacting yet another unfunded mandate that everyone at the county level then has to try and figure out how to pay for? That question never really got answered.
I would guess that the amount they're throwing at it when all is said and done is probably about 50% of what it's going to cost.
That makes sense.
Which, if they're paying 50%, that's great that they can do that. But that same cost is now an ongoing cost, right? Those meters are only going to last, at best 15 years, but somewhere between 10 and 15 years. So those companies have got to, essentially look at $200 or $175 a year replacement cost that they have to continue to assess just for the replacement of that meter.
Wow.
And so it's significant costs that could be incurred there.
I appreciate you taking some time to put this all in perspective. not to be cynical, when you hear something like, this could save 30% of our water usage, your first reaction is, well, why wouldn't we? And then, of course, you start asking more questions. And this is, Nathan, we should pause for a second and point out to listeners, this is exactly what proponents of creating a water district here in Cache Valley said would do Cache Valley well. Having all of you there, members of the water district, to keep an eye on this, to track this, and then to offer feedback to our House representatives, our Senate representatives, and the legislature at large. This is the water district doing exactly what it was designed to do, right?
Yeah, I think so. To look out for local needs, because they're not the same as the rest of the state, and certainly not the Wasatch Front, where most of the recommendations come from, and then try to get people to see how it could work for here. Because we're certainly not against conservation and using our water better, but we just think there could be better ways to do that.
Sure.
With that amount of money that's going to continue to be spent every decade to replace those meters and do that.
Absolutely. That is, for listeners, you can attend water district meetings. You can reach out to them with questions or comments yourself. You can see some of the past projects they've worked on, upcoming projects, all of that at the Cache Water District website, cachewaterddistrict.com. Our guest has been Nathan Daugs, member of the Cache Water District. And Nathan, really appreciate taking some time for KVNU to sort of recap the session with a week left, the bills related to water that you're keeping an eye on, and raising some pretty important questions here that I hope our listeners will keep in mind and maybe reach out to their lawmakers about as well. And Nathan, we'll check in again soon, maybe after the session when things have calmed down a bit, and we'll talk about the drought, because that's next on your agenda, right?
Yeah, that's another big concern we've got to look out for sure. We could spend an hour on that for sure.
Let's do it. Sometime. Let's say sometime in March when we've taken a breather from the session. We'll talk drought.
Perfect.
Thanks again for your time. Our friend Nathan Daugs, again, member of the Cache Water District. You can read all about their work, past, present, and future, at cachewaterddistrict.com. Nathan providing some perspective on legislation making its way through the legislative session with just a week to go before that wraps up. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Pristine wilderness can still be found in the West, where creeks run freely and historic apple trees still bear fruit. Maple Creek Ranch features breathtaking canyon views and opportunities for real estate development. 2.5-acre lots are now available with adjacent wilderness areas that provide endless riding and recreational possibilities. So find your piece of paradise just 35 minutes from Logan at Maple Creek Ranch. Schedule your appointment online at maplecreekranch.net.
The Best of Northern Utah, presented by Campbell Snacks, home of Pepperidge Farm, is back.
Best of Northern Utah.
Support your favorite businesses by nominating them now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Have a favorite restaurant? Nominate them. Love where you buy your car or where you get your hair done? Nominate them for Best of Northern Utah, the area's biggest celebration of local business. Couldn't live without your gym or your favorite plumber? Nominate them all right now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Presented by Campbell Snacks, home of Pepperidge Farm.
Best of Northern Utah.
Thanks again, Nathan Daugs, for his time. For listeners, again, keep in touch with the Cache Water District, or keep an eye on them if you want. It's always good. cachewaterddistrict.com. Nathan recapping the legislative session, bills they're watching as a water district, and again, reminding everyone why having a water district was, I think, one of the smartest things that voters approved here in Cache Valley in decades, giving us a voice in all of this to offer feedback to the legislature on bills like House Bill 242 and secondary water metering programs. It's important because the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake area, Utah County area, they get a lot of attention naturally because that's where everyone lives. And places like Cache Valley, and even more so in places like Rich and Box Elder County, just sort of get forgotten sometimes. So the Water District here to make sure that doesn't happen. And as you heard from Nathan there are a lot of legitimate questions about some of these admittedly good ideas the legislature is mulling over It's important that rural areas are considered in all of this so that we don't face more unfunded mandates when it comes to water, which has been a bit of a habit of the legislature when it comes to rural areas in general, with their focus on Salt Lake County. That's our time for today. Tomorrow on the program, the part 2 of the Batman-themed For the People movie show, and we'll talk about an event called I'm Not an Old Fogey, I'm an Artist, coming to Cache Valley. Up next here on KVNU, an hour-long ABC News special on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's next here on KVNU.